Hey, everybody. Welcome to Daniel Davis Deep Dive. I know everybody's looking for our promised live from the Russian front video right now with an Irishman who is fighting on the Russian side. First time we've ever had the view from the other side of this line. We are having some communications issues right now. We are trying to get them resolved. We've got some folks trying to help us, trying to make some connections. This is on the actual front lines, not just a euphemism. He had to actually move to a further back place to get out of some of the drone zone and some of the other things so that he could safely get on the air. And we're not sure exactly what's going on right now. We're going to go ahead and start because I don't want to keep you on the line under any false pretenses, because everybody I know primarily is really eager to find out what things look like from the Russian side. And by the way, let me just kind of point out what the intent of our show is here. We are not advocating for either side, not for the Russians, not for the Ukraine side. What we're trying to do is show you a realistic graphic view of what is going on the ground. And we have 3 times in the past shown you an American Westerner who was fighting for the Ukraine side and had been on the front lines. We had last week, we had Ben Hodges, who was very much pro-Ukraine, because we think it's important to see what things look like from that side of the line. Tomorrow, we're actually going to have one of my colleagues, a former combat Marine, who has just returned from visiting several of the Ukrainian sides of the front line, and he will have some very interesting observations from that perspective. But today, God willing, we're going to have our first ever view of what it looks like on the Russian side. And this, again, just not advocating for the Russians, just like we weren't advocating for the Ukrainians when we had Westerners on fighting from their side. But we think it is absolutely essential for you to understand what's really going on the ground on both sides of the line, because when you hear stuff coming out of whether it's Washington, whether it's out of Moscow or Kiev or Brussels or any other capital, their policies mean absolutely nothing if they can't be turned into reality on the ground. And that is one of the most important things that we think Daniel Davis Deep Dive shows you, is what is reality on the ground. Everybody wants to win in the war. Everybody wants their side to succeed. But if that desire and that aspiration can't be physically manifested on the ground, then to continue to pursue that course of action is to doom your side to failure and your people to death. And I think that this stuff is going to play out the way it's going to play out, and you can make your own minds. That's one of the things we love to do here. I'm going to show you a couple of things from recently from Zelensky while we're going to give this fellow a little bit more time. So stick with us here. We're going to keep going on here. By the way, and if it turns out he can't make the connection, we'll go ahead and call this off and then republish it as soon as we can make it happen. Could be even later today. So be sure to watch the channel in that event. But we're going to keep on a little bit longer here and give you some information that's going to be at the United Nations. Zelensky will be speaking there tomorrow. President Biden, actually any minute, will be speaking. And one of the categories he's going to be talking about is this war and a lot of the stuff that Zelensky's here. And then on Thursday, Zelensky will meet directly with Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris to try to give them his plan. Well, he gave us a bit of a preview. He was actually in Scranton, Pennsylvania yesterday at a weapons manufacturing company to where he said this to the people.
You said that 400 people work here, but I wanted very much to come here and to thank you. 400 people saved millions of Ukrainians. Because of the result of your work, I'm very thankful, just from ordinary Ukrainians to you. And what can I say? Thank you so much. You helped us to survive against Putin invasion.
You know, it's just, I guess, a little bit disappointing and discouraging when you have him on the literally the front lines of the manufacturing base here in the United States, to where he's saying, thank you for saving our lives and all that, because obviously it makes the people feel good. But that's not actually what's going on. I think a much firmer case can be made that by continuing to support this war, continuing to support the Ukraine side with limited amounts of ammunition, because the most that we're producing right now is somewhere around 100,000 shells a month, which sounds high in isolation. But when you compare that the Russian side is somewhere between 250,000 and 300,000 per month, you can see where that number is not that great, especially when you're talking about a front the size of the one that we have here, where it's 1,000 kilometers on the eastern front and now several hundred more kilometers on the northern front, which is where our young Irish fellow is currently stationed. We'll find out what happens with that shortly. But then one of the other things, there was an award given to Zelensky yesterday, given by, unfortunately for a lot of people, David Petraeus. He went out and there was this, and made this big to do about it. You see him giving him an award there. It's just a Academy of Accomplishments or something like. I'd literally never heard of this thing before. But here's what Zelensky said in his acceptance speech.
We don't have much time. The next few months will be decisive ahead of us in this war, Russia's war against Ukraine and all of you, because this is Russia's war against freedom itself. We are short of time to define what the outcome will be, and we must define it, not Russia, not their bloody allies. We need to be faster. We need not to lose the next few months in war so that we don't lose next decades.
You know what he said there reminds me of something I'm going to pull up on the screen here just a second to let you see. It was in the Washington Post today. There was this interesting piece. In fact, let me actually pull it up so you can see it as we're talking here. It's Max Boot. I don't know if you know who Max Boot is, but he's a real popular. In fact, he's an actual columnist. Not that just he's published this article here, but he's actually a Washington Post columnist. So he writes all the time. And he says, Zelensky is in the U.S. seeking aid. Here's what Ukraine needs. What's interesting about this is that when you scroll down this, he just talks about all these things that really set up why they can't win. I mean, he talks about that their energy infrastructure has been gutted. They're now power cuts could be up to 18 hours a day, especially as you're heading into the winter months. It's going to gut your ability to do economic activities, for the people just to have electricity to stay warm when the cold weather comes. Then he talks, more and more about the fact that Ukraine side doesn't have enough ammunition, doesn't have enough manpower. Even with the $61 billion they got last year, it didn't make any impact on the ground. And then yet somehow he still seems to come back to the conclusion that, but if we just get a little bit more stuff, then things can work out. And that really underscores the lack of reality that is on the Western side, on the Ukraine side. And we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there'll be some new thing than this, this plan that he's given to President Biden that we don't know about. Maybe that there'll be some change. I can't even conceive of what something like that could be, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But what we do know is that all the things that we're saying, all the things that the Ukraine people are claiming, whether that's Zelensky or Budanov or several of the other leaders that they have there, Yermak, they keep claiming that, no, we just need a little bit more stuff. We need, of course, the long-range missiles, and we need more tanks and more artillery pieces. And then in 2025, it didn't work in 2023 when we literally gave them almost everything that they asked for in massive quantities, millions of shells, tens of thousands of armored vehicles and other military vehicles, everything that you can imagine. And they didn't do anything. And one of the big issues that they didn't have was air power or air defense in required numbers. We don't have the required numbers to give them. If we were fighting Russia, and I keep emphasizing this, our own officials in NATO have admitted we have 5% of the air defense missiles that we need. And you see there that President Biden that's live. He's actually speaking at the United Nations right now. We'll check in on that later. But listen, we don't even have the capacity ourselves. So no matter what Zelensky asks for, it's not there to give anything that could change the dynamic. And of course, that also assumes if the equipment could be found in the right numbers and the ammunition, that Russia wouldn't do anything about it, that Russia would sit passively by and allow their territory to be hit with long-range missiles, would allow Ukraine forces to drive up into their territory or to drive them out of the territory in the east and not do anything and not escalate. There's no rational belief that the idea that Russia would just cow, give up, and take, fold up their tents and go home and just allow themselves to be defeated. You have to be delusional. You have to be high on some sort of drugs, something, because there's no chance. If you look in all throughout history, Russia never reacts that way. And that's why I say, that's why we're going to give a few more minutes to this Irish fellow, give him a little bit more chance to make a communication. If not, we'll come back later. But that's why we're showing this, because it's important for policymakers, for people to understand. If your vision of what you'd like to happen can't be made true on the ground, then all you're doing is condemning your own side to death. And that, I just can't imagine why people want to continue to do that. I get it, maybe, being optimistic, and that can last a long time. But at some point, you have to come to the conclusion that all the wishful thinking in the world and all the desires aside, it's not possible to accomplish. And to continue to go on out there truly is to kill your own side. We'll see what happens with that. Because if you don't come to that conclusion and take appropriate action, then you stand the chance to be militarily, physically defeated in war, something that is unthinkable in the West, but we could make true if we don't do something about it. Listen, we're at... it's now 20 minutes past the time we were supposed to start. I'm going to go ahead and call an end to this right now. We do have Larry Johnson coming back later today at 3 o'clock, going to be talking about some explosive new events that are happening in the Middle East. I just saw something flash on my phone here a second ago. Apparently, Hezbollah has basically said they are declaring war on Israel now. They're no longer going to stand aside. There was massive strikes again overnight and a large loss of life in Lebanon. So we're going to have Larry talking about that. Also, there, with President Biden speaking right now, there's other events also happening on the ground in the battlefield elsewhere.
And then, Danny, can we show everyone what Zelensky was saying this morning about what he considered, or not consider, what he's presenting part of his plan?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead and show that. We'll wait on that. Go ahead.
Your victory plan, does it include negotiating with Russia? And how can you trust someone?
It's not about negotiating with Russia. No, it's about, like I said, it's a bridge to diplomatic way how to stop the war. The bridge is a plan of victory or victorious plan. It's a strengthening of Ukrainian army and Ukrainian people. Only in the strong position we can push Putin to stop the war, diplomatic way. And only with a strong position we can speak. That's why we're asking our friends, our allies to strengthen us. It's very important.
And just reiterating for those of you who may have joined us, the Irish person who is fighting on the side of the Russian that we are trying to get on the phone, we have not been able to do that. We are having some communications issues. We're trying. We've been giving it, trying to buy him a little bit more time to try to get on. We're not sure what's going on with that. So we're going to bring you back as soon as we can get that connected. It could be later today. It may be back again tomorrow. I apologize for this, but it is from the front line and things are chaotic up there. But the last comment I'll make here about what you just saw with Zelensky, that gives more indication that he's probably still delusional, because the idea that after your entire 2023, the entire calendar year failed to even dent the first Russian line with everything the West could give it. And now that after all of calendar 2024, you've been pushed back, there are even bigger breaks in the last 24 hours, some big changes on the battlefield in several areas of the Eastern Front. The Kursk salient continues to get shrunk by the Russian side. To then say that now I've got a plan that's going to make Russia hurt and make them stop all of this stuff and make peace, that's I don't know a time in human history, and I've studied all the way back to the Peloponnesian War, whatever it was, a couple thousand BC or 1000 BC, something like that. Long time, never seen anything like that happen. Seems pretty unlikely to base a future hope on that, but we'll again see. We'll give him, we'll give him at least the benefit of the doubt to see if there's something that he's talked about that we haven't, talked about, that we haven't conceived of, that could change things. I doubt it seriously, but we'll wait and see with that. And listen, I'm going to go ahead and call this off here. It's been 22 minutes now. I'm sorry. Do please watch for our channel here, because as soon as we can get him, even if it's later today, we're going to bring him back, because you don't want to miss this. Truly, this is an exclusive thing that you just rarely see, especially on Western outlets like ours. Larry Johnson will be back today at 3 p.m. with Israel's firestorm in Lebanon. And man, is it ever. You definitely don't want to miss that one with Larry. And we'll also see you back probably at 1 o'clock with an update on whatever President Biden said at his speech. And we will see you on the next episode of Daniel Davis Deep Dive.